Hi, and welcome back to Ghosties. I'm Macy,
And I'm Natalie.
and today we have a topic requested by one of you once again. I believe the requester's name was on YouTube Vader for Prez, so nice name. I like it.
I'd vote for you.
But whatever your name is, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
If anyone has any requests that anything they'd like to see us talk about, be it
Anything. We've gotten a few requests of things that are already on our list, so it's really cool to see that we are valid.
we share interests.
Yes.
Yeah, but leave a comment down below. Let us know. Go ahead and let us know what you want to hear from us. But what we'll be discussing today is the most haunted house in England.
Woo!
The Borley Rectory. It had some super spooky happenings, some scandal, a sad end, so buckle up. A bit of a roller coaster here. And I really enjoyed doing the research on this one, really. I love anything that's got like a good history. I love history.
Every episode you're like, I love doing the research.
If you haven't noticed, I love this. I'm obsessed with this kind of stuff. I love learning about this. I love reading about people's encounters. I love reading about people's investigations. Just all of it, okay? Sorry.
And I love that you love it. I'm here. Let's go.
Also, we're working on another listener stories, as we usually are. So if you have any paranormal stories you'd like to share with us and share with the pod, go ahead and send them to our email at ghostiespod@gmail.com. We want to hear your stories. So please.
Yes.
Our tea this week was also suggested to us by one of you. I think her name was Eileen or Eileen. So thank you so much. It's Turkish apple tea.
Woo!
But it's green apple. I accidentally got the green apple, so.
It smells really good. I'm really excited about this one. So let's go. Okay, so we talked for too long, so it got cold, but it's really good.
It's really good.
Tastes like a green apple. Like I like it a lot. A lot.
What do you rate it?
Oh God, I said too much. Say 8.5.
8.5. That's solid.
Yeah, I really
Majority
like
of your ratings are usually under 5.
No, I just feel very strongly one way or the other. I never fall like, oh, it's
there's no gray area with you.
Yeah, no, it's like either I love it or I hate it. And I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's up there. It's like an 8.5, I would say. Yeah.
It's like an apple gum. I put sugar in mine, so mine's a bit sweeter. But it just tastes like bubblicious green apple gum. I love it.
This isn't all the time. I could drink this all the time kind of thing.
For me, this is more like a if I'm wanting something sweet, but like maybe I ate too much dinner, so I can't really I don't have room for ice cream or cookies, so I drink this to give me like that sweetness. I like it.
All right.
Because I always have to have something sweet.
Thank you so much for suggesting this one, because I will return to this one.
Yeah, and keep suggesting teas, because we've tried a lot and we want like more on the list.
Yeah, I think we might actually go and kind of do a revisit to some of ours, because I have a lot of tea at my house.
And it's spilled over into my house, and I have a box full and then like a canister full. And
yeah, I can only drink so much. And I still have a significant amount of tea at my home. So anyway, let's move on to our topic here. 70 miles north of London, on the border between Essex and Suffolk, sits a small village called Borley. Today, it has a population of about 195 people, but its history, particularly as it relates to the world of paranormal investigations, is rich. It was once home to the most haunted house in England, I stated before, and was a site that many traveled to try and catch a glimpse of the ghostly wanderers. Because of its size compared to its notoriety, there aren't even any signs indicating you're passing through it, so it would be easy to kind of miss in the blink of an eye. Some believe it may be just like a way for the villagers there to not attract people, like tourists can keep on hunters. Going. Yeah.
Smart. I would do that.
Where our focus for today lies has its beginnings in the year 1862, when Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull, vicar of the Borley Church, had a home built across Hall Road called the Borley Rectory.
That is a tongue twister. Proud of you for getting
sure
through
was. That. Took a couple tries.
I'm gonna say it 3 more times fast.
No, thank you. The home was built in a Gothic style and large enough to fit himself, his wife, and their 14 children. Actually, there was 14. It's a lot. Too much, some would say.
You know, if that's your thing, cool, but why?
There was actually an additional wing added to the home in 1871 to accommodate their family, because it just kept growing.
Yeah.
It was built to replace an earlier home on the property that burned down in, I believe it was 1841. The house had 23 rooms and sat on 4 acres of land full of plants and garden paths and niceties. There are also rumors of many tunnels and vaults built underneath the home from pre-existing structures, but that's not something I could prove.
That's
because I've never been there. So
that's something that I've always said, that like if I could build like my dream perfect home, I would want like little secret
a bunch of hidden
rooms and
rooms.
things. Yeah.
Same. Me too. I've
100%.
always. What is that movie? Cheaper by the Dozen. When they move to the new home and the little boy with the frog ends up in like the tower, and he has like the secret door that leads to like a chute outside.
Yes. Love. I always wanted something like that. Or yeah.
Ghostly sightings began almost immediately upon the family moving onto the property. Several of Henry Bull's teenage daughters claimed to have been out for a walk in the gardens one summer day when they noticed a hooded figure standing still up ahead, their head bowed in a praying position. They called out to the person, thinking it could be maybe a parishioner or someone looking for their father, but the figure didn't answer. As they stepped toward the person standing in the path, the figure looked up and began to walk and then disappeared into thin air.
When people say they saw something disappear like before their eyes, what do you mean? Like,
I think
did it,
it's
like,
kind of like a fade
flash,
out.
or did it fades, you think?
Like a quick fade. That's what I picture in my mind anyway. Like in my mind's eye, it's like when someone says an apparition disappeared, I feel like it's like a quick fade.
I'm interested. I want to know. I want someone
me too.
that's seen something like that to describe it.
If you've ever seen anything like that, please let us know down in the comments, because that is something we're very interested in. The girls were shocked, and it wasn't long after this that many other people on the property spotted the ghost of the nun.
Oh, God.
The garden path she was seen on was dubbed Nun's Walk because she was seen so often by not only Bull's family, but also visitors to the home and church.
The Nun, terrible movie, by the way.
Is it?
Seen it?
No,
Horrible.
I haven't seen it.
The last one that they came out with, I watched it and fell asleep.
Really?
Horrible.
There's some like twinge of connection to the nun later on.
Yeah, well, hate those movies.
There was even a small summer house built along the walk so people could sit and watch the apparition appear to see if it'll appear along the path. Because they were just so intrigued by this ghostly nun.
Seen that like often. I don't like that.
There were more than 20 individual people who had seen it on several occasions.
And it looked like a nun?
It looked like a nun. Not a spooky, scary movie nun. On occasion, people would see the nun peering into the windows of the home. Henry Bull even had one of the large dining room windows bricked up because he, quote, objected to an apparition peering through while they were at meals. Like, it's cool if she looks in some other time, but not while we're eating dinner.
Okay, yeah, but I don't like that. I always get like weird about windows.
Me too. We've talked about this.
I get weird about windows, mirrors, the nighttime, everything. I'm just afraid. But like, I get so uncomfortable if I go to someone's house and like they don't have blinds, or like they just leave the curtains open all the time.
Mm-hmm. I know you were at my house the other night.
Yes.
And I had my curtains still open because I hadn't gotten to closing them
dark,
yet.
and I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I usually close them once it starts getting dark.
I overthink, and I always freak myself out that like if I look at that window, someone's gonna be there.
Yeah.
That just freaked me out.
You watch too many scary movies.
I do. But
That's
I like
okay.
them.
The parish organist, Ernest Ambrose, was quoted as saying that the Bulls were very convinced that they had seen an apparition on several occasions. So it was known far and wide within the parish and all of Borley. A guest of the Bulls, who had no prior knowledge of the story of the girls on Nun's Walk, had once walked into the home asking the Reverend about the nun he had seen in the garden. She was spotted by him and many others walking from an adjoining field, stepping over an old low stone wall, and walking across the lawn, disappearing amongst the trees.
So she never really interacted. She was just there.
Yeah, she was just kind of seen in the distance, walking and kind of like living her own life in whatever time period she belonged to.
I'm not mad at it. That's fine.
No. The Bulls and visitors alike would often hear footsteps following behind them while they walked through the quiet garden, alone at both day and night, with no explanation to the sounds. Many villagers refused to pass the house after dark if they were alone because of the spooky phenomenon and the kind of
the lore, as would I.
Yeah. Many other occurrences happened in the home while Henry Bull was the vicar, including the sounds of running water, though the home didn't have indoor plumbing at the time.
Wait.
They would hear running water.
Like a stream or like a sink
like a faucet.
turned on?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Someone will know. Tell us, what does that mean?
footsteps and knocking sounds at night, which is
Common.
typical poltergeisty haunted. One of the daughters, Ethel, claimed to have heard these footsteps and knocking at her door at night that would keep her up. They grew louder and louder over the course of a week when, at its crescendo, Ethel felt a stinging slap across her face and a red mark accompanied the event right where she felt the disembodied hand touch her face.
What did she do?
I don't know. She pissed it off.
This?
There are a couple of theories as to why there would be a nun wandering the grounds around Borley, but before we get into it, I just want to say that none of these have been substantiated, so take this with a grain of salt.
Okay.
There's no actual solid proof of anything.
Okay, this is just hearsay, stories,
This is just rumor.
tales.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the rumors claims that an old Benedictine monastery used to lie on the grounds in which the house was built. It's told that a nun from a nearby convent and a monk from the monastery were having an illicit affair and had made plans to run away and elope. But before they could do so, they were caught, and the monk was hanged for his misdeeds, and the nun was immured in the walls of the building.
Was what
Like-
in the walls?
Immured, like the cask of Amontillado,
I don't know what that is.
like Edgar Allan Poe story, where they put her in a room and closed it up with bricks.
Okay. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
That's horrible.
So this nun just remains on the ground searching for her beloved so that they can run away together.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's an really creepy, awful
What a horrible
story.
way to go.
Agreed. You've never read The Cask of Amontillado?
I have. As soon as you started talking about it, I could envision, because in school we did a whole
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
As you
Loved,
should.
by the way. Loved.
Same. I still have a lot of my printed out poems.
Really?
I found them the other day in a notebook.
That
Or in a
doesn't
folder.
surprise me.
There is another theory, but we'll get into that one a little bit later. I have it in another section. After Henry Bull passed away in the blue room inside the home, that they called, I think it's like the master bedroom, basically. In 1892, his son Harry Bull took over as Reverend of the Borley Church. I'm having a lot of trouble saying Borley. The nun continued to be spotted from time to time, and some even claimed to see a ghostly coach racing toward the home, and it would vanish before it reached the actually hitting the home.
Interesting. Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
Edward Cooper, the family's groom and gardener, was one of the people who had seen the coach, along with his wife. They would also hear the sounds of knocks and thuds and dishes breaking all through the night in their room, which was above the stables. They lived in a little loft above the stables. And after living with these haunting disturbances, they moved away after only a couple of years when it became just too much for them.
Oh, I would too. The first one, I'm
They
like,
would wake up in the middle of the night to hear dishes breaking and go, and nothing. There was no dish on the ground, nothing strange.
see, I don't know. I feel like if I was experiencing something like that, I would play it off so hard in my mind, be like, oh, I just heard it in my sleep. I was just dreaming. It's fine.
That's fine the first couple of times, maybe 3-4 times if you're pushing it. But if it's happening on a regular basis, there's only so many times you can say, no, it's just me. At some point, it's not just me.
I would convince myself.
You think so?
Yes. Because
We all know I wouldn't.
no,
I'd wake
you
up
would immediately be like,
ghost.
yeah, no. If I was in any place near sleep, which I am often.
Yes.
So I would just I would convince myself that it was nothing. Be like, oh my gosh, I just keep having these crazy dreams. And that would be that for me.
Okay.
But if I was just wide awake, no, I'm out.
I feel like you'd still try to convince yourself.
Maybe.
Harry Bull and his family were apparently very open about the paranormal occurrences that they'd experienced. They continued to hear the footsteps in the home, often through the bedroom passages, before stopping at the bedroom doors, and sometimes even accompanied by 3 taps on the doors.
3 taps on the doors.
3 taps.
Demonic.
Anytime I hear anything in threes, that's what I think of too.
This is back in early episodes about 323.
Oh yeah.
Still see it all the time.
Really?
The other day, I got on Instagram, which I don't usually get on Instagram a lot. First post that showed up, someone that I don't know, some random YouTuber's wife, ran a marathon. Her number was 13233. And that was
Weird.
the first picture on my feed. And it wasn't even the first picture in the little slide. It was the second one. And it was already swiped over.
Someone else had commented that they also see that number too. Very weird.
Weird. That is the date that me and Ryan first spoke ever.
323?
Mhm.
That's even weirder. Why didn't you lead with that?
I don't know. I didn't want to make it like, ooh, me and my boyfriend. I don't like people like that. I don't know. It just, but yeah.
That makes it even more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that date's coming up.
I'm going to have to do some research.
I've
deep dive
I've
into
read every little, find something for me.
I will go read all of the books.
Do it. And then report back.
Okay. Aye. There were sometimes sightings of a tall man in dark clothes called the Dark Clothes Man. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. I was about to pack it up. We were about to be done.
I know.
I can't take this anymore.
Yeah. Sorry. I had
You
to.
said tall man. I said,
I know.
like
I
already.
know. I had to throw it in just what we were talking about in the last episode. But anyway, they saw this tall, dark clothed man in the home and the sounds of loud crashes and objects falling in different parts of the house, just all the time.
It's just the slinging slasher.
Yeah. Doesn't he end up being someone like looking for a job?
Yes.
He's like, hi, I brought my spatula.
Yes. Love.
Harry Bull passed away in 1927, also in the Blue Room, where his father had passed. And a year later, in 1928, the church finally found a reverend to take his place as vicar and was to reside at the rectory.
How do you feel about moving into a place where people have died?
We've talked about this.
We have?
Depends, yeah.
I just would not. I don't care who it is.
You said that. It depends. It depends.
Wouldn't feel like my home. It would feel like
someone has died on like every square inch of this land at some point. Probably not every square inch, but a good portion.
Probably something.
Something crazy has happened everywhere.
I have this intense desire to know everything. And if I start thinking about things like that, I can't. But like specifically things like the pyramids and things like that, I can't let that go, dude.
I know. I'm hoping when I get to heaven one day, I will arrive and just be given all the details. And know all the mysteries.
If that is not what happens,
you'd be upset.
Was this worth it? Was this all
like, can I talk to your manager?
I've never asked to speak to the manager once in my entire life. I will be talking to the higher up. Oh, I'm mad now.
Why?
If I don't get the answers in the end,
or maybe by the time you get there, it won't matter. You don't care. You'll just be in so much joy and peace that
I won't
none
know,
of it even matters anymore.
I won't know peace
until you know who built the pyramids.
Until I know everything about the pyramids.
Okay.
Specifically. There's a few other things, but specifically the pyramids.
Okay, that'll be your project. You can do an episode on the pyramids. You can. Start it now. We'll do it next year.
It'll take me years because I am going to spiral.
That's fine.
Let's move on, please.
The next family to live at Borley Rectory was Reverend Guy Eric Smith and his wife, Mabel. As you'd suspect, the strange things did not stop when they moved in. The first thing that the family noticed was the sounds of banging and thuds at night while they were in bed. They tried to move rooms so that they could get a full night's sleep, but no matter where they went, it's like it followed them.
Ooh.
Especially if they were sleeping in the Blue Room.
Well,
which makes sense.
Where two that we know of died. So.
Yes. They also heard servant bells ringing all through the house, though nobody but the husband and wife lived there at the time. They even disconnected the bells, hoping to kind of get it to stop, but the sound persisted with no apparent cause.
Spooky.
Yes. I don't know, the sound of distant ringing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. That's
distant ringing bells and distant train horns.
You and trains, though. That's just your irrational fear of all irrational fears. Like, there's a very low chance that you will ever be struck by a train, but it's not zero.
But it's
so in
not
your mind,
zero. And maybe some part of me, like in a past life or something, still remembers a tragedy occurring with a train.
I guess
that's the only explanation I have.
Or you just saw Unstoppable, and then you were like, "Oh God."
I was afraid of trains before Unstoppable, though.
I don't know.
But yeah, that was terrifying. Talk about a horror movie. That's horrifying.
That movie is actually scary. Okay.
It's good, though.
We talk about so many movies. I forget that I've seen so many movies.
I know. Sometimes I'm like, I've never seen a movie in my life, but really it is vast. Anyway, they would hear the same strange footsteps, and there were reports of Mabel and the maid seeing the same ghostly coach and nun out on the grounds, too. So it's continuing on. It's not just the Bull family.
Generations of seeing this nun.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of sad if her origin story's true, what you said.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's not.
Well, there's two theories that are thrown out there. We'll get to the second one in a little bit.
I almost want it to be darker and want her to be evil and like brooding. I
Really?
don't want. Yeah, because I don't want her to be like
sad
and wandering. I'd rather her just be like angry, and I'm staying here.
Oh no.
I would. I don't know.
They heard whispered conversations while in the home alone, which you know how we feel about whispers. One of the strangest occurrences to happen to the Smiths was on a day near the beginning of their tenure there. Mrs. Smith was unpacking when she found a strange brown parcel inside of one of the closets.
Oh no.
She took it out and unwrapped it to find a human skull. Reverend Smith buried the skull in the churchyard in a small burial service, and they never found out who it belonged to.
They didn't call the cops?
I'm sure they did. They thought maybe burying it, like giving it a proper Christian burial, would kind of cease some of the activity.
Yeah.
It didn't.
No,
No.
I didn't think it would.
The Smiths claimed to have had keys move on their own accord. The key to the library was often found several feet away from the door at the foot of the stairs, just like it had been thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be replaced by one of the Smiths, only to come back an hour later to see it in the same spot in the ground once again.
Weird.
The doors would also lock on their own. Another creepy occurrence witnessed in the library was the several occasions when the heavy wood shutters in the French windows would pull together sharply on their own. And they were like big, heavy shutters. Like they weren't easy.
Like church stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was in the home. It wasn't in the church. But
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, I know what you're
it's
talking
in that Gothic style, though. So it's like big and beautiful. There was an occurrence that supposedly happened to Mr. Smith one summer while he was leaving the bedrooms. And it was especially stuck out to me. As he walked underneath the arch leading to the landing of the stairs, he heard the sounds of whispering overhead. He described them as being soft but spoken with urgency and sounded like it was a woman's voice. That kept on until he got to the threshold of the door leading to his private chapel, and the voices suddenly stopped as soon as he got to like his worship area.
Oh, so it's like, it's a dark energy.
Maybe, yeah.
Ooh, don't like it.
He continued hearing the unintelligible whispers on and off for several weeks, and the only words he was ever able to make out during that time was on one occasion when he distinctly heard the words, "Don't, Carlos." There were no known connections to a house and Carlos. So, I don't know, maybe a previous, like maybe at the monastery, there was a monk. Like maybe the monk that was his name, and the nun came and they were like, "No, we can't." And like having this like lover's quarrel, if you believe that rumor.
I'd like to believe that rumor, but also it makes me sad.
Mm-hmm. The Smiths had endured so much that they just could no longer explain away
The happenings?
the happenings, yeah. And they reached out to a newspaper called the Daily Mirror, requesting to be put in touch with someone at the Society for Psychical Research, which I find weird because he's a vicar, he's a reverend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Isn't that your
domain?
Like, yeah. Don't
Yeah.
you know about this?
But they were like, I don't know. I can't handle this. Nothing we're doing's working. I mean, we buried the skull. So reaching out to the researchers.
That's very interesting that they wouldn't like try to do their religious practices like and think that like that was like, enough.
That was
for
enough,
them.
yeah. I know. Strange. Well, they weren't like exorcists or anything like that. So.
Okay, true. So they needed like the
Something.
backup. Yeah,
Yeah.
in case it was evil.
Maybe.
That makes
Well,
sense.
I don't know necessarily that it was evil, just that it was so prevalent.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't think it's that they were scared of it. I think they were just tired of it.
Yeah, didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Daily Mirror not only sent out one of their reporters, but also contacts for a renowned paranormal investigator with the Society of Psychical Research, or the SPR, named Harry Price. So Price, who was a former engineer, now married to a wealthy woman, was free to spend his time researching anything that piqued his interest,
Nice.
just like us.
Nice.
Although we are not married to wealthy women
I
and
wish I was.
living a life of leisure. While Price and the reporter were at the rectory, they experienced several of the things that the Smiths claimed to have experienced, and more. Price claimed to have been hit several times with pebbles, have seen floating vases, and heard tapping as if trying to communicate from a mirror.
Oh, no.
The increased activity seemed to have left with him, and many, including Mrs. Smith, believed that there was a possibility that Price was playing up the occurrences a little bit.
When you said floating, I was with you until floating vases. And I said, seems a little haunted mansion.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't seem real.
Regardless, though, the Smiths moved out of the house only a few months after the small investigation took place, and supposedly said that the 2 years they spent at Borley Rectory were the darkest years of their life.
I don't know. Maybe they just didn't tell enough scary stories, but like, it didn't seem like the scariest like haunting I've ever heard. I mean, I'm sure it would bother me if I like heard scary things.
I think you would be scared. I think you would be terrified.
Oh, I know I'd be scared.
Of ringing bells when there are no bells to be rung. And like servant bells, you know, like they're connected to a room and come down to like the kitchen or whatever.
Yeah, and a little,
so it's
like,
as if someone was in there pulling on the string. You would be terrified.
I forgot about that part. Yeah, I would. I'd be scared. I'm scared
Don't
now.
try to act strong.
No, I'm scared now and I have nothing going on. So, I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just talking.
The next family to move in was that of Reverend Lionel Foyster, his wife Marianne, and their adopted daughter. She was like young, like a baby. Unsurprisingly, the hauntings did not subside, and if you can believe everything reported in the diary of Mr. Foyster, kept in the first 15 months they lived there, things only got worse.
Oh, no.
After living at Borley for only a couple of weeks, Mrs. Foyster had her first paranormal experience. She was walking up the stairs on her way to their bedroom, which was the blue room.
Of course.
And she could hear footsteps following behind her on the staircase. As she turned around, she saw the apparition of a man behind her.
Oh, no.
She continued up the stairs, probably running. And when she reached the landing, the figure was no longer there. Marianne went on to see this ghostly man on several other occasions. And when she was later shown a photo of the late Harry Bull, she recognized him as the man she'd seen around the blue room.
Okay, that's not as scary because I was about to say, where did this random man come from? Like, we have the characters, we have the nun, we have the like other. It was just getting too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
This must be a spirit of the person who had passed in the home.
That's not
One
as
of the
scary then.
reverends.
Yes, still hate it, but okay.
Yes.
He was a godly man, so he wasn't evil, hopefully.
Hopefully. Items in the home would disappear, only sometimes reappearing later in a totally different part of the house. Sometimes things were just lost in the ether. Like they never found them again. It's like Halloween Town too. When like everything lost goes to that one man's house.
Yeah.
That's what I think of every time I lose something. I'm like, well, now he has it.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his pet cockroach.
I love Halloween Town.
Me too. They would walk into rooms where books, which had previously been placed on shelves, would be thrown to the ground. And one evening, Mr. Foyster walked toward the staircase to go down to the library, where he found all the pictures that he had lined like on the hall. Looked as though they'd been knocked out. They were all face down on the ground, apart from one large frame that had been completely knocked askew. It was just like super heavy, like something came in and just like swooped everything down.
Scary. I would be really interested to see like what particular books were messed with, or like
if it was like spiritual books or
if it was like a book called like Get Out or something, you know? I don't know, like something
like a message.
Yes. Scary.
I don't know. I don't think it really
it probably
cared
didn't say.
about the books.
I would.
Like it was just everything it could get its hands on, it was making a mess of. Mr. Foyster also noticed that his sermon drafts for the following Sunday would often be moved to a totally different room from where he had written them. The only thing that kept them in their place was when he'd placed the papers inside of his large Bible that he kept on his desk. So
horrifying.
Once he started keeping them in the Bible, they went untouched.
Great, that's scary.
Yes. The Foysters noticed on more than one occasion their furniture was turned over on its side, including beds and kitchen tables, and bedding would be ripped from their mattresses.
Why are they getting so much?
I don't know. Well, maybe I know.
Okay.
Some weird things went down.
Because, like, they're not even the ones that buried the skull. So, like, what does the entity have against them? I would be more after the last family.
I don't know. I think they might have brought in some energy. Guests of the rectory were witnesses to some of the insane things that the Foysters and all others before had encountered. Sir George Whitehouse and his wife were frequent visitors to Borley and were especially helpful after one terrifying night for Marianne. It was 11 p.m. when Mr. Foyster heard his wife cry out in terror down the hall. He ran out of the bathroom and found her in shock. She told him, "I had been in the bathroom and had just come out onto the landing when something hit me in the face and nearly stunned me for a moment. I was carrying the candle but saw no other person."
Oh my God.
Most horrifyingly, she had a bloody cut underneath her left eye where she had felt the hit on her face.
See, I'm like, the seeing, the moving of things. Why are we touching?
Yeah.
Why are we hitting? Why are we smacking? Is it a little funny? Yes. Why are we doing
But
this?
that feels more violent and more evil, more dark. Yeah. The Whitehouses insisted even that Mr. and Mrs. Foyster would stay with them for a few days and continued to allow them to stay at their home in the nearby village when things became a little too much for them.
I don't know if I'd want to associate with them.
Maybe they like the paranormal.
Nah.
Lady Whitehouse was a witness to some of the phenomenon herself, actually. One evening, while she was at the Borley Rectory, helping tend to Mrs. Foyster while she was sick, she saw a medicine bottle levitate off of the mantelpiece and float through the air, coming to a soft landing on the floor next to the bed.
See, I don't know. When you say, like, vases and things like levitated slowly through the air,
well, it wasn't like a levitate slowly. It was just like it kind of like lifted and moved across the room. Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that it just doesn't seem real. Like, I'm not saying that like I want to see it.
Prove it.
No.
Don't. Don't.
You're in my home. No. But like something shooting like down or falling down, that seems more like plausible. But like,
rather than a total like movement,
like someone just like, ooh,
yes, but then if things disappear and reappear in other places, how did they get there? In your mind.
Touche. Well, I imagine it gets there quick. I don't imagine that it's like, I imagine it goes like, whoosh, and slams down.
What about entirely new rooms?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. In an interview with a peer of Harry Price, Lady Whitehouse, quote, assured me of the complete truth of this incident and many others and voluntarily offered to swear an affidavit confirming them if they wish.
Wow.
So she was
serious
about it. They continued on living there for several years and trying to ignore the fact that vases and dishes would fly across the rooms and doors would lock on their own and all of the horrifying things. Their young daughter was even locked in a room with no key for several minutes at one point.
Oh, no.
Marianne had also claimed that one night a disembodied hand had tossed her from her bed.
What?
Yeah. So Reverend Foyster exorcised the home twice, like did whatever ritual they have for their exorcisms.
Yeah.
But the poltergeist activity persisted. Just continued on. Some sources said that it seemed to help a little bit, but
not much.
Everything just kind of came back full force. There were quite a few claims by Marianne that never quite added up, though. I think she was playing it up a lot.
I mean, I would too. If I heard like one little whisper and it was like like there was already some hype around the place and it was like the 19 whatevers, so like there's not much like entertainment, so you could just like gossip with your friends and stuff. I'd be like, if I heard a whisper, I'd be like, oh my god, yeah, like they said my name. Like, I'd play it up a little bit. I can't even lie. Like, if I wanted to, like, if I was her. I don't do that in real life because I don't want to bring those things around me. But, like, I could see her being like, oh, you know, I live in that haunted house and so many things had happened, to make yourself more interesting.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to that, I think.
I wouldn't, but if I was her, I would.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
But yeah, she's someone to be skeptical of. And here's another story that I'm extremely skeptical of. Marianne also attempted to communicate with whatever spirit was tormenting the family using unusual methods.
Okay.
So she claimed to have found writing on the walls in the hallway leading from the kitchen. It was mostly scribbles, but she was able to make out the words, Marianne, get help. Marianne wrote back underneath the scrawlings to say she did not understand and asked that they tell her more. A few days later, more scribbles and letters appeared, lights, mass, and prayers. Across the hall on the other side, more words were spotted saying, Marianne, please help get. And another that said, get lights and prayers here. The words were written in pencil about 4 feet off of the ground.
Her kid? Or...
well, I think her kid was a little too short for 4 feet.
She's having an episode.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's what I would assume.
A lot of the activity didn't quite match up with what previous families and guests had endured, so it was just like played up to the fullest. And that, coupled with the fact that Marianne admitted to an affair that she was having with a lodger who lived in Borley with them for a while, and she often used the excuse of investigating the hauntings to slip away from her husband. So I think she was really playing, like maybe her husband was getting a little suspicious, like,
she's like, no,
you're hanging out with old Frank over there. No, we're investigating.
Okay.
Look, it slapped me in the face.
Okay.
Yeah.
It took me out of it.
Which is really unfortunate. It's really upsetting to me because I truly believe there was something here. I truly believe there's a haunting, and we'll get more into it because there are some things that are just really make sense to me. But when you have people like swindlers over here just adding in things and making things a little crazier, it like ruins it for everyone else.
It takes away the whole thing, and now it makes it all like invalid. Like,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because like I'm taken out of it now.
So there were plenty of naysayers after the Foysters' tenure at the Borley Rectory, but there was at least one incident that even someone who claimed the majority of the activity was complete fabrication couldn't explain, and had haunted his memory for years. So he said before Reverend Lionel Foyster retired in 1935, she had held several seances in the Blue Room. This particular seance that the person, I didn't write down his name, so it's very unfortunate. Sorry. But this particular seance that he was in, she was joined by several prominent figures in the UK. As they sat around the table in complete silence, they heard the kitchen bells that they set up to detect intruders. So they had some bells set up to see if there were any like real or ghostly people kind of coming through. Mm-hmm. They began to ring. There was nobody near the bells. Nothing happened. One of the men jumped up, startled, and said, and as he did so, a lightning strike of silver blue light seemingly exploded out of the walls and the ceiling. So it was just like a bright light came across the ceiling. And one of the men present at the seance claimed that the entire group was struck with an instant paralysis, which lasted about 5 seconds. They were all just stunned. A couple of the men refused to stay the night after this occurred. And the same man quoted above said, "I can't explain that occurrence. And to be honest, it still makes me feel rather shaken. The rest of the hauntings were, without exception, the most successful hoax of the age. But that still sets my spine tingling."
Could that have been like an electrical issue in the home?
Maybe. But the bells ringing, coupled with suddenly the weird light, because it seemed to emanate from nowhere.
Yeah, but I could see if I was like a skeptic that like maybe like the bells rang because like the walls kind of were shaking a little bit because the electrical little shock was about to happen.
I don't know. Is there a movement before a shock?
Don't ask me anything about how anything works ever.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Things just happen. But I could see like that just being like an electrical problem, and it shocked them. And when you get shocked, I've been shocked before.
They weren't shocked, like physically shocked.
No, they're like paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like whenever you get like shocked, if you're like plugging in a lamp, I've been there, and it shocks you, it paralyzes you for a few seconds.
You feel the jolt. Like everyone, like the guy stood up to look to see that there was nobody there near the bells, and suddenly the light flashed, and they all just like were still, just staring up to where it was. Okay. So they didn't claim to feel any like jolt or anything like that.
Okay. They
were just stunned.
I'm just trying to think of rational things.
Either way, whether it can be rationally explained or not, this person claimed that there was no explanation in his mind, and he said all of it was a joke. Like, of course none of that happened. But this happened. I was there, and I have no clue why.
I believe him.
After the Foysters moved out of the house and left Borley Church, there was some difficulty finding someone to replace the Reverend and live at the home. They decided to place it up for rent, and that is when our famous paranormal investigator returned, Harry Price. He decided to conduct a years-long investigation of the Borley Rectory and placed an ad in the Times that read, quote, "Haunted house. Responsible persons of leisure and intelligence, intrepid, critical, and unbiased, are invited to join a rota of observers in a year's night and day investigation of an alleged haunted house in the home counties." Good. He recruited 48 observers, mostly students, that lived and worked at various times throughout the year of 1937 to 38. All 48 of the investigators experienced something there. Be it drastic and significant changes in temperature throughout the house, objects disappearing and reappearing elsewhere, things seen floating in the home, because several people said that they'd seen more things floating.
Yeah.
And the common persistent noises heard in the home since it was built, like the thud, scraping, shuffling, and footsteps, all of that.
Would you do it? Did they get paid? Or was this like a volunteer
I think this is a volunteer thing because it was people of leisure, so
yeah.
Like,
would you do it?
I'd probably visit, yeah.
Not me.
I know, but I probably would.
I want to be like open to do things like that, but I'm so afraid of like taking something with me.
Yeah.
If I could know for certain that
as long as you protect yourself before and after, like say some prayers,
but
and
you never know.
Some protection.
You never know. It could still happen.
I'm confident that I could handle it, I think.
Okay. Not me.
At least emotionally.
Yeah, especially not me.
We know. One of the investigators wrote about many of the more significant happenings in the home and found that most of them seemed to have no earthly explanation. It was hard not to just quote the entire paper in its entirety here because there were just so many experiences. They claimed that the majority of the noises and activity occurred at night, but there were a few instances where they heard or witnessed something in the daytime. There was a morning at around 10 a.m. when one of the investigators was sitting alone in the library when they heard 3 heavy blows overhead, the floor to the blue room.
Oh.
They called out to the other person in the house with them, but they had been in the kitchen and nowhere near where the noises had come from. As the other person walked into the library, they both heard 2 more blows from above. Of course, when they went up to see where the noise had come from, nobody was there and nothing seemed out of place. The house was completely locked up, and oftentimes they would place things in front of the door so that people, like, they'd be able to tell if someone came through, like a string or tape or something across to make sure that no one had come through.
Mm-hmm.
And
no one did.
It was unbroken. Yeah.
Okay, that's creepy.
It was just them 2 in the house.
That's creepy because you're having that shared experience. Yeah, that's scary.
One of the observers, named Mark Kerr Pierce, who stayed at the home often and was a witness to a series of strange occurrences.
Mark Kerr
Pierce. His name is Mark Kerr Pierce. Yeah.
Is Kerr Pierce one word or is
Kerr-Pierce is his last name.
Marker.
So it's hyphenated.
His name is Marker.
Yes. For this, I will quote the paper. One hot August day, 3 people called. 2 of them were known to Kerr Pierce. The third was their friend, a Miss R, who had expressed a wish to see the rectory. Although they were not official observers, they were taken over to the house. Everything was quiet and nothing unusual happened until they were crossing the landing outside the blue room when Miss R suddenly came to a standstill, saying that she had a feeling of indescribable terror. She had a sensation of pins and needles in her hands, which were icy cold. She was trembling violently and asked for help, as she was unable to move.
Oh my god.
It was as though she was fixed to the floor. About 15 minutes later, she was prevailed upon to go to the landing again, at which time she experienced exactly the same sensation to a lesser degree. So she stepped in the same spot. 15 minutes later.
Do we know how the first 2 guys died in the blue room? Like what they died
I think
from?
it's just old age. One I read was like...
Either way.
It was like neurological, something like Parkinson's or complications of like syphilis or something. I don't know. But he had like neurological problems.
But it
was older age.
The way your body moves, correct?
Yes.
Like shakes or
yes.
paralysis. That's interesting.
I didn't make that connection before. I'm glad I'm talking to you.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Mika got a lot of good points. A month later, a friend of ours, a group captain in the Royal Air Force, brought a lady down who was reputed to be hypersensitive to psychic conditions. We hoped that her presence might induce unusual activity because she was, sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
They also were shown over the house. Nothing happened until they came to the landing where on exactly the same spot, this lady experienced the same feeling of horror that had so affected Miss R. An important point is that neither of these persons had any knowledge of Miss R's visit to experience. So neither the captain or the psychic lady.
Mm-hmm.
The exact position of her spot was marked on the floor, but great care was taken to make the mark invisible to anyone unless they got down on their knees to look for it. Neither was it known to anyone except my son and myself. Kerr Pierce had another experience when he was sitting alone in the house on an autumn evening. He was quietly reading in the library when he heard a metallic clicking noise. He didn't pay much attention to it at first, as strange sounds were often heard in the home. But after a few moments, he realized that it sounded like the sound of a lock turning. He stood up to go check it out. Maybe someone was arriving at the home unannounced to assist him in his investigations. He walked over to the shut door of the library and found that the door had been locked from the inside.
That's horrifying.
That was probably one of the scariest parts, honestly.
I would convince myself that I locked it. And I'd be like, oh, we just must have rats. Need to call an exterminator. Rats. Be like, that's what the noise was. We just have mice running around.
A lot of naysayers and people who aren't convinced say that maybe a lot of the activity was caused by rats.
And I would be on their side.
Just for the sake of your own sanity. As you'd imagine, their group held several seances with the assistance of a planchette.
Oh, no.
Yes, of course. Late one night, once again in the library, they kind of did a lot of stuff over here in the library and blue room area. The group sat around a table, and as soon as their hands touched the planchette, words began to form. It was immediate. She explained that it ultimately produced words, phrases, dates, and even drawings. Some of it was unintelligible, some demonstrably untrue, and some impossible to confirm, but a certain amount of it was factual and later confirmed. The group claimed to have made contact with a French nun named Marie Lair, who had come to Borley to marry a member of the Waldegrave family. So this is the other theory, and this is where it comes from.
Very similar though, still.
Yes. Except it wasn't a monk. It was a member of a really noble family that lived in the area.
Yeah, but either way, she was like going to be married and all those things. Can't nuns like never be married?
Yes, well, that's why the first story was like they were in trouble.
Yeah.
She, I don't know, left nunning. I don't know what you call it.
Can you do
left
that?
the convent. I think so.
I mean, obviously
you can for sure
will.
now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules were back in the 15th century. But anyway, back to Marie over here. It is said that she was murdered by her husband in a fit of rage and buried in the cellar of their home on the site where the rectory was built.
Is that the skull they found?
Maybe.
Do we know the skull?
Nothing comes of the skull. We never revisit the skull.
I hate that because even if it's not a paranormal thing, it's very true crimey. It's like...
Well, okay, so it couldn't have been because the rectory was built in 1862 and Marie was said to have been around long before that.
Okay.
Back when the Waldegrave family lived there, which was like the time of Henry VIII.
I just want to know who that skull was.
We will never know.
Just
Sorry.
like
it's one of your things.
I know.
Add it to the list
like
right under pyramids.
Unmarked grave things. It's like whenever there's not an answer. Like more than like people like unsolved cases where like people are looking for their loved one. Ones where nobody's looking for this person and they were found haunt me. I hate it so much.
Yeah. Me too.
It keeps me up at night.
And this is a more ancient one. Well, ancient, like hundred years.
Never know.
Some sources say they also came into contact with another entity named Sunex Amoris, who talked to them for a short amount of time before saying that the rectory would be burned down that night, March 27th, 1983, where the skeletal remains of Marie would be uncovered in the burned wreckage. And the home did burn down. But not that night.
Okay. But did they light it on fire? Was it arson?
Suspected it might have been, but we'll get to it. After the year was up on Harry Price and Co.'s rental, the property was rented by a Captain W.H. Gregson. He made plans to capitalize off of the notoriety and wanted to offer guided tours of the most haunted house in England. He claimed to experience all the same activity and even blamed his dogs running away on the spirits of the rectory. Though they might have just not wanted to be there.
Yeah.
But maybe it was the ghosts. Maybe they didn't want to be there because of the spirits. That's when on February 27th, 1939, 11 months to the day of the infamous seance, the home burned to the ground, leaving nothing but burnt ruins and falling bricks.
Wow.
Like we said, arson was suspected. Thinking maybe it was an insurance job on part of Gregson, but because he was some said unsavory character. But no one was ever charged, so it remains.
It could be. Yeah.
Witnesses of the raging fire claimed to have seen a ghostly figure in the flames and described the sight of a nun's face peering down from a window. Sir Price made his final visit to the home in 1943, where they conducted an archaeological dig of the site after it had burned. This is when they found pieces of a skull that, in Price's mind, proved the theory of the buried nun. Another controversial point made by Price, because locals at Borley claimed that the bones were not of a young woman, as Price had said, but that of a pig.
What?
So he pulled out, I think it was like a jawbone and a fraction of a skull.
Yeah.
And everyone in Borley like, no, dude, that is a pig. That belongs to swine. That is not a woman. And he was like, no, definitely a woman.
There's ways we can look at this though. Were these not collected? And
they were collected,
kept?
And he tried to give it a proper Christian burial in Borley, because I thought, wow, interesting that bones are found buried 100 yards away from an actual ancient cemetery. So they were like, well, let's move it to where it belongs. And the people of Borley were like, no, we're not burying pig bones in our churchyard. And they truly believed it. So they got another pastor. I don't know. It is very contentious. So it was buried not far away.
Okay, good.
They had a small ceremony just in case.
Good, but also like we should have kept it so we can double check, because
I think there might be pictures, and I saw some comparing like it to a pig, and it kind of looked like it. But I mean, I also don't know, because I don't know anything about anything.
Neither.
The home was completely demolished in the summer of 1944, and the property was divided up with parts of the garden still there, but it also contains several cottages and a small rectory cottage now, today. After Harry Price passed in 1948, some of his peers at the SPR accused him of questionable practices in his investigations, And there were many people who raised allegations that he went as far as completely fabricating some of the events that he experienced at Borley Rectory, just for the sake of advancing his career in the paranormal field.
Yeah, he just wanted to say that something happened.
Yeah, he wrote 2 books on it and was in the process of writing a 3rd. So he's really known for Borley.
He needed it to happen.
Yeah, or wanted it anyway. The reporter that initially traveled with him to the house back when the Smiths lived there said that he caught Price with a pocket full of pebbles that people were experiencing being thrown at them.
Oh my gosh.
Some researchers at the SPR said that most of what Price reported could have been could have had their origins from natural causes like rats.
Mm-hmm.
With all of the controversy surrounding Price, many began to question the legitimacy from all of those who reported happenings while at Borley Rectory. That's what we talked about. It compromises everything.
Yeah.
There were even some investigations of the land in which the rectory used to stand in the early 40s that claimed there were no previous structures there, like a monastery or the Waldegrave mansion. Though some sources I read, I couldn't find exactly like a report, but some said that there were remains of a structure dating back to the 1500s found on the property. So
whoa.
We'll never truly know. There could have been a monastery in the 1500s.
Yeah.
But we'll never really know. Some final interesting information about the Borley Rectory is that there has, for obvious reason, been great interest for paranormal enthusiasts for many, many years. The fact that the home no longer exists has not stopped investigations from occurring at all. In the 70s, not only did the BBC put some time into producing an episode of Ghost Hunters about the paranormal happenings, we'll discuss that a little later, but our spooky mom and dad, Ed and Lorraine Warren, visited Borley several times.
Nice. What do you mean it's not there? How are people still visiting? Is it
the site is still there? Like the land's still there,
it's just
and the
flat?
church is still there.
Oh, okay.
There are other things
The
on the
house
property
isn't.
now, yeah.
Okay.
Just the house itself was completely taken down.
Okay.
Ed and Lorraine Warren conducted paranormal investigations around the land and the church across Hall Road and caught on camera the spirit of what looked like a nun on the grounds outside of the church.
What?
Inside, they saw a spirit walking up and down the aisles, head down in prayer. Lorraine felt the presence of a black mass move past her with clearly evil energy emanating from it. A skeptical photographer they had with them on one of their many investigations began to feel ill and couldn't breathe while inside the church.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Later that night, while listening back to their tapes of the evening, they could hear what sounded like a female voice saying, "Hit him, hit him."
Ew.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
That one,
Oh, that
reading
kinda
it
just
initially
freaks me
sent
out.
chills through my whole spine.
Yeah, that kind of just like made me sick a little bit.
They have
that girl got hit in the face.
Yes, there's a lot of hitting and slapping and
Ooh, I don't like that one.
There's a brick from the rectory in the occult museum today, like Lorraine Warren occult museum. Lorraine felt and saw several spirits while in Borley, including the nun. She claimed to have seen the nun. And it's believed that the Conjuring universe movie, The Nun, may have had some inspiration taken from Borley and the Warren story while visiting.
You know, that's fitting because the Borley thing is so back and forth and like I don't know if it's like spooky or not, and the nun sucked. So like it makes sense.
It all like comes full circle in your
Yeah.
mind. Well, the church is a grade 1 listed building, meaning it is an important historical site dating back to the 11th or 12th century.
Wow.
It was granted to Sir Edward Waldegrave in 1545 by Henry VIII, and the Waldegrave family was Queen Mary the First Council, like in Queen Mary Council.
Wow.
So they were a really important family. So the Waldegraves lived there. Like, that is true. The church contains tombs of the Waldegrave family and statues of prominent figures within the family and like of the UK and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It is said that the haunting left Borley Rectory when it was burned down to the ground and moved across the street to the church to continue on. Parishioners and clergy alike have seen and heard many strange things, both inside and outside of the church. Several vicars have heard tapping and knocking within the church and have had things move where they had placed them to a new location while alone in the building. They also have heard
stuff.
all the same stuff. They've also heard the sound of the organ playing on its own.
Ooh,
That's like very common.
that's like
Many people have heard it.
sinister. That's scary.
Just an organ in general.
Yeah.
When I think ghostly happenings, I hear organ music.
Yes. I agree.
Many visitors of the church have heard those same footsteps on the nuns' walk following behind them in the churchyard, as well as a strong putrid smell wafting over them as they're hearing the steps. Bad smells equal
Like demon.
evil energy to
Dark.
me.
Yeah.
Demons. Crew at Ghost Hunters on BBC, which we talked about, in 1976 placed recording devices into the church overnight and locked the doors to make sure no one could get in and skew their investigation in any way. They were able to capture loud thuds and the sounds of footsteps on tape, which the tapes still exist. It's really bad.
Yeah,
It's
it
really
was
grainy and
a long
hard
time
to
ago.
hear. They also found what sounded like a door opening and closing on its own. Again, doors locked. Nobody's in there. On one of the nights, a couple of the investigators stayed in the church overnight and began to feel cold when they witnessed what looked like a bright light moving in the darkness. And as they watched it come closer and closer to them, and remember, they got all this on audio, no video, but audio.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear them talking, like, what is that? You see that over there? And they're like kind of discussing what they're seeing. They heard a loud thud sound off near where the light had originated, and the light disappeared shortly after.
Ooh.
People still today like to visit the church and the site that's accessible where the Borley Rectory used to stand. Because again, there are like little cottages there, trespass on people's yards. There may have been some bad actors muddying the waters on the real versus fiction, but one thing's for sure, the reputation has stuck and probably will remain. Was it truly the most haunted house in England? Was it a prank started by the Bull family children? Just taken to the extreme, and generations after generation just continued on?
We'll never know.
I don't know. Are there spirits trapped on the site? Or is there an echo from previous time? Maybe it's just an echo, like residual energy, and the same things playing over and over again. Because it's the same activity over and over again. Like the footsteps, the nun bowing her head in the garden and walking off into the same direction.
See, everything to me feels like, I don't really believe it. It all seems kind of fake and just like fun stories, except for the nun thing. And then like the like feeling your body like shock and like stick upstairs, and like I guess that little shock one too. It just feels like the guy died and like that's how he died, and so it's like you're feeling how he died. Those all seem like
a little more reputable.
I believe it. Yeah, but all the other ones I'm just kind of like, okay.
There's a lot that I just can't get behind, but there's something there.
Yeah, maybe.
Otherwise I wouldn't have covered it.
Maybe.
I'm
on the fence.
There's definitely, in my mind anyway.
I'm on the fence.
I'm less of a skeptic. With the house no longer there and the Borley community resistant to the claims of the paranormal, I'm not sure we'll ever know. But
I'm fine with that.
You are? Okay. Well, this is where we leave you today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen, watch, whatever you're doing. Make sure you rate and review if you're on podcast. 5-star review, please. Subscribe to us if you haven't already on YouTube. Like this video. Leave us a comment. Have you ever been to Borley Rectory? Are there any other places you'd like to see us cover, or any other topics in general? Paranormal, ghostly, fairy-ish, cryptid, alien, anything. Just let us know. We're into all of it.
Yes.
If you have an encounter of your own, please go ahead and send it to us at ghostiespod@gmail.com. We love to read them. Let us know if we can read it on the pod or not. But
even if we can't, still send it.
Just let us know that we can't. We're also on Instagram if you want to follow us at Ghostiespod. So check us out over there.
We're everywhere at Ghostiespod. Eventually.
Type in at Ghostiespod and you'll find us. We're so excited to be going on this adventure with you guys, and we will see you next Monday.
Bye.